What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to go over my options portfolio, what I did today, kind of my general thoughts on what's been happening, everything that you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So it was an interesting day. So for instance, I have Lucid's chart up and a lot of stocks kind of ran in similar nature. So it did have a initial spike, of course, with that 50 basis point news that did come out, which was better than anticipated. I think there was only one big bank that did forecast that, and that was JP Morgan. Everyone else was anticipating a 25. So why is it selling off? I feel like a lot of people are debating this right now. And a couple of things. Based on the FOMC meeting minutes from the July meeting, Powell said that he wasn't even considering a 50 basis point cut. So now you have to beg the question, what has changed? Unemployment. So employment numbers, and even in the past, he kind of signaled that he's really watching the labor market very, very closely. So this is where you had a divide going into this meeting. So essentially, rate cuts. Are they truly bullish? Not really. Yes, they did initially raise interest rates to combat against inflation, which has been obviously going down, but in a good market, and assuming everyone is able to go out there and spend the money at the current interest rate levels, then you actually do not need to cut rates. So this is where the market is taking this and somewhat jumping to conclusions. So this is why you did have more of a further pull down, despite Powell also saying that in the following meetings, you might actually see up to 100 basis points in 2024 for cuts. And so a lot of people are seeing this as alarm bells that essentially it is to avoid a potential recession. And a lot of charts have come out kind of signaling that. This one was posted as well, as you can kind of see. So it kind of signals on the verge of every big, recession over this last 2 decades that typically 50 basis points is the precursor. So that is kind of what is really causing a lot of fear, despite the 50 basis points being more of a positive surprise. So there was a lot of things that was coming out. And on a side note, I do have many YouTube channels, some of which you guys don't know about. Some are obviously I live in Canada, so some are Canadian related and stuff like that. But I actually just started this one, and it's kind of random, so I put it as Earnings Wizard. And the reason why I did this is because a lot of companies do interviews or conferences and then they just delete them, and if someone didn't record them, such as this, they go into Never Never Land. So I've kind of found myself listening to a lot of these conferences, various different ones. So I've done semiconductors, but there was this one. I'm going to put this link in the description below, and I'm not trying to plug my other channel by any means, but Capital One, I've never actually looked at them as far as a investment, but this CFO, Andrew Young, this was done between September 9th and 11th. So it's fairly recent, like a week ago. And just listen to the first 10 minutes of this. I'm not going to waste your guys' time and play this here, but I really, really recommend you guys listening to it. So I'll have a link to this in the description below. But he kind of talks on how the state of consumers, and again, this was 1 week prior, he even did state that no matter what, if Powell cuts 25 or 50 basis points, that is not going to solve the problem of the whole labor market, that it is just going to be a temporary mask, and that essentially something does need to improve. And lo and behold, here we are 1 week later, and we are selling off because of the very kind of points that he did bring up. So I got to give credit when credit was due. This Andrew Young, he predicted this 100% on point. And not only that, he actually talks on just the general kind of stance of consumers. So if you are looking at to better yourself as an investor and just know generally what is really the fear side of what is happening, kind of listen to that. But still, enough of me ranting. So that's kind of in a nutshell what is really happening, my thoughts on that. So now the question is, how do you play it? Or I guess in my case, because of this being my portfolio, how am I playing it? So Going into today, I was generally bearish, and to be honest, still am. So even though it did spike, I actually didn't sell out. You don't panic sell or whatever. If anything, I actually increased. So quickly popping over to 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗧𝗧. So you can kind of see this right here. So now I only have 3 short positions, one of which is Robinhood, Lucid, and Palantir. And in case you guys are just new to the channel, a lot of this did come from me selling calls. So typically Thursday and Friday are when I like to sell options, both calls and puts, just to have kind of get in some additional premiums. So the next 2 days I'm going to be fairly active, so I'll give you guys updates on that. But there was one other short position that I did have, and again, I like to give you guys updates, and that was 𝗖𝗧. So initially I did sell 750 calls. It just ran up a lot higher than I anticipated, so I ended up shorting 500 shares at 750. It ran up to, I think, a high of around 8. Let's just pull this up. So good old 𝗖𝗧, let's see, take a look at this. So 𝗖𝗧 did run up to a high of $8.53. So obviously I was at a substantial loss. So what did I end up doing? I ended up kind of doubling down. So I initially did $8.42, 600 shares. Then it started to dip back down, started to have a second run, and I did another 1,000 shares at $8.44, bringing my average down to $8 and I think it was 26 cents or somewhere around there. And yeah, it kept dipping, dipped, and so ultimately, yeah, actually going back over here, you guys can see I did liquidate it at $8.10, and it kind of hovered around that for the most part. You can kind of see actually my option right here that did expire. It wasn't filled. I did try to sell 3 $24 strike Robinhood calls. Obviously it didn't hit 14 cents, what I did want. So that's kind of the basis of, again, what I tried to do. And so yeah, I ended up closing out my short position, freed up some margin. And so I think in general, I'm still happy with Robinhood, Lucid, and Palantir being my short plays, because Palantir, yes, it is a beast of a stock. It keeps getting good news after good news, really propelling it higher, but I think that's only going to last and take it so far. It is very exhausted. If there's more and more fear in the broader market, big entities that have been the basis of what's been really propelling Palantir higher, that is going to slow down. And similar, I did videos in the past saying, well, big money is not really buying it and is going to pull back. So it went from 33 to 28 or 29, exactly how I played it. And so ultimately, I have an average of $35.22, only 300 shares. So if it does have a spike to, let's say, around 37.50, let's say tomorrow, I might be, I'll have to debate. I'll see exactly the premiums at the time, but I might sell calls, or I just might double down on my short position to bring that down. Robinhood, especially very linked to consumers, that one is going to be a volatile stock. Most likely it is going to continue to break down, and so I have an average of $21.98, down 6% with that. Lucid, I really like the stock itself. A good product, just it is very consumer driven. So if people are concerned of a potential recession, then yeah, stocks such as Lucid, nobody's going to be buying a $100,000 vehicle or 60 or whatever. It's not feasible. So I'm only down 2.5%. So this is kind of my trading portfolio. This is through 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗧𝗧. I do have a link to them in the description below if you want all their platforms and everything for free. So link to that is in the description below. But ultimately, I am shorting 3 stocks. The only things I've done on my other accounts that I haven't really shared with you is I just bought more gold. And so that was through a ETF that holds the physical stuff. Aside from that, I didn't really do all that much with those accounts. So yeah, I might be adding a little bit more money to this swing trading, but generally, like I said, I think I am overall bullish or bearish, sorry, on the broader market. And so yeah, that's my quick 2 cents on exactly what is happening. No matter what though, do not copy me, do your own due diligence at the end of the day, because I am a nobody. I am not a financial advisor. I am just your local Spider-Man or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, what's your thoughts? Based on my watch list, there is a lot of stocks that you know what, are potentially could pull back quite significantly if there is a recession. One stock just recently IPO'd, and that was on Monday. I've done a couple of videos already, and for those of you that follow Financial Journey, that is HCWC, Healthy Choices Wellness Corp. This one is down just alone 15% today, and it did IPO at $10. 4 months ago, I even said, and it's all there, that this was going to go down to roughly between $2 and $3. And lo and behold, here it is. 4 months later, everyone was calling for me, saying that I was wrong. But honestly, this company, before it even did spin off, before this IPO was even launched, the company was just tacking on debt, and it is convertible debt, very toxic stuff. And not only that, the management on Healthy Choices Wellness Corp is dumb as hell and arguably have a very interesting past. And what I mean by interesting, sketchy. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents. Definitely look at this stock if you're looking at doubling down. The only reason why I'm not shorting this right now is because margin requirements. I was shorting quite a lot of stocks. Recently, I was shorting, Starbucks, and so that ate up a lot of margin. And then 𝗖𝗧, so luckily I freed that up. And so I'll kind of gauge to see what does happen. I still do feel that there's a lot more downside with this company. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. What's your thoughts, for instance, on the rate cuts? So this is the current outlook for the November 7th and December 18th. So there appears to be a 31% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut for the November 7th meeting, and then another 25 basis point cut right here for right here for the December 18th meeting. So kind of maybe the market is somewhat pricing that in. We'll just have to wait and see. What's your thoughts? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up as well. Take advantage of this promo. It is only up until September the 30th. Link to this is in the description below, and also the comments to get you 5 free stocks. And each stock is valued at $2,000 on a side note. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.